It's that sort of juxtaposition of robots, telephones and standing stones. It came from a really strange place, that song. It was me looking at the other side of the valley in Devon at sunset at the cows and the way that their shadows just sort of became more and more elongated to the point where it did look like a sort of stone circle. And I sort of imagined the cows became humans, and the way that we're sort of constantly pausing to document and communicate. When I started out, there wasn't such a thing as a phone with a camera in it. It didn't actually exist. And the only time you got your photograph was taken was either at a sort of an event or someone who randomly had a camera on them. So life was actually, the daily procession through was a very different thing. I mean, now literally all the time there's this sort of very subtle but apparent deconstruction of our senses into sort of robotic components. There's a line in Everyday Robots that says, "Everyday robots just touch thumbs." You know, and it's that sort of, I don't know, it's that gradual, very subtle alienation from ourselves that is taking place. It's a sort of dance that we're involved in with technology. At sunset, people standing there just on their phones, static, at a train station or whatever, you know, that sun and the shadows and the sense of beauty in that, but also a sense of isolation. Yeah, the hostiles are sort of in those shooting games. The characters that just constantly get up on each level, and you're given no character other than they're hostile to you. They're completely soulless things, and there's something in that relationship that we have with the world when you're in a sort of altered state, and the blankness of just killing, just that sort of passive aggression that exists in computer games. It's kind of weird. Personally, I'm more of a sort of oh, look at the sunset, isn't it beautiful? And that kind of person than someone who rushes out to get the latest bit of technology. I'm not great with technology, to be honest with you, in fact. Well, that starts really strangely, arrhythmia.
Yes.
Yeah, accepting that you live with uncertainty. Yeah, which is when your heartbeat is slightly irregular, which is something everybody experiences. It's sort of a mad way to start a song, and then the press play. Well, it's just so much of our sort of abstractions in an everyday sense are related to pressing play. You know, whether it's just sitting down, watching a DVD, or putting the radio on, or obviously on a computer, or when you're passing time playing a game on a tube or whatever. Symbols like the triangle have become so sort of synonymous with abstraction and time out. You know, and they're so powerful, and yet we accept them on such a sort of universal level. You know. People press the triangle when they're on their own and do whatever they do when they press the triangle, whether it's listen to music, you know, whatever. Well, it's kind of mad because Miss Tembo is actually about a baby elephant, and this is the interesting thing about getting someone to produce you. I mean, it was when we sort of started talking about making this record, I gave Richard about 70 tunes, 70 bits of music, some more finished than others, and one of them was this little thing recorded on a phone from a trip to friends that live in the outback in Tanzania, in a place called Mkomazi. Went to visit them a couple of years ago, and sort of a few weeks prior to us turning up, this little elephant had literally just walked into camp and had been named Mr. Tembo, and they were looking after him. And I was, you know, as you would be, I was incredibly sort of charmed by this creature, this amazing creature. And I had a ukulele with me on that trip, and I wrote this little song for him and sang it to him. The guys that were looking after this little elephant, very devout Christian Tanzanians, they watch telly every night, and the little elephant sat with them and watched telly, but most of it was gospel television. And the word for gospel in Swahili is Injili. So there was some strange connection between going back to Colworth Road to the City Mission, this baby elephant, and gospel. I wanted to sing a song about the parakeets of London, and you know how they sound like sort of space invaders when you hear them flying over, and you're sort of unaware at first that it's incongruous, and then when you look up, there's this sort of flash of colour and this sort of alien sound. And I've always been fascinated by them and the history of them, and so that's why that's called Parakeets, really. The narrative image is of a night spent in Dunoon in Scotland, which is where they used to have the nuclear submarine base. I did a gig there in 1996 when Blur did the Seaside tour. Another very ghostly place sort of completely shrouded in melancholy, and sort of a place that sort of had seen better days, definitely. But the image of it's hard to be a lover when the TV's on. There's nothing in your eyes. It might seem like it's a domestic thing, but for me, it was the idea of someone just heading out of those dark locks into the Atlantic in a nuclear submarine with the sort of the glow of their monitors and stuff, and you know, that aspect. That's what that song kind of is. And the Selfish Giants are sort of these nuclear submarines hiding in the canyons far out in the sort of oceans. That's sort of two songs, but we sort of made a decision to turn them into one really long story, which starts sort of in September with the ghosts of Carnival still sort of walking around the streets, shadowy sort of characters. Moko Djembe goes right back to sort of Congo. You see it in Carnival, but I've actually seen it in the Congo, the sort of the original Moko Djembe, and it's sort of terrifying sort of evocation of a spirit. I kind of let them out of their boxes, and they're walking around my neighbourhood. Moko Djembe, he's sort of walking through All Saints Road, and he's looking over at the Brunel estate, and you know, he's kind of sort of, where's everyone gone? And why am I still here? And what am I? So it's quite a ghostly thing, and then it goes into the second part, which is me. You is the first part, and me is a sort of very subterranean, sort of late night, morning after thing, which, you know, is part of Carnival as well. I mean, that song, Hollow Ponds, when I was sort of playing with the idea of making a record of this nature, I actually went back to Leytonstone and I went back to Colchester in the same week, and I took lots of photographs and small videos, and you know, walked up and down the road in Leytonstone and the street in outside Colchester. And then I went to the Hollow Ponds. It's sort of about half a mile away from Philibrook Road, and it's this amazing sort of part. It's sort of close to Wanstead Flats, which I suppose is the sort of historically would have been the sort of a grazing ground outside of Epping Forest. And there are these old sand pits which are now ponds, which are called the Hollow Ponds, which I spent a lot of time as a child playing, riding my bike, fishing. As water sometimes can sort of become a mirror, I sort of I started sort of going back through some mad experiences like learning to ride, having my first sort of canter on a horse when I was like 7 or 8. 1976 was kind of the point where I started, but with the massive heat wave. I had to move out of my house because we were having building work done on it, and I was living in another part of the neighbourhood. Right. And there were 7 high-rise buildings in my field of vision. And also I like the number 7, and it's kind of a magical number, and it went with the Moko Djembe and the ghosts. That was a sort of early sort of realisation of what I think Everyday Robots is trying to express. Same place actually, down in Devon. When we had the eclipse, I went down there like everybody else, and there was this moment. It was complete sort of classic British white lead sky. Absolutely no indication that some sort of, you know, historic event, you know, and there'd been this incredible congestion in the sort of hours preceding of people trying to get down to the southwest, because that's where it was really going to be at its best. And everyone was there taking photographs of nothing. And that in itself became the event, this sort of endless flashing of light all the way down the coast, and that's kind of for me where that song I got that emotional tug from. First verse is a recurring dream I had as a child. I used to have this recurring dream about a black sand beach and flying in this kind of sort of aeroplane, a sort of slowly crashing aeroplane, and it would always fly over black sand beaches. The second part of the song is about a bus journey from Los Angeles to San Francisco to go and see this place which we talked about a lot, which was the Church of John Coltrane, which was this mad sort of church dedicated to Coltrane. Very, very excited about it. Got there, and it was sort of beautiful autumn morning, about 7 in the morning. I don't know what we thought was going to be going on at 7 o'clock in the morning, but it's sort of in our mind, we'd sort of carried this mad night on a bus there and sort of stumbled out, and there was no one there. It's relationships with my family, you know, from childhood to now, and yeah, I mean it's definitely totally driven by mistakes, you know, happiness, dreams, expectations, how you sort of find yourself locked in cycles and how do you get out of them. And I know that my experience is very similar to a lot of other people, so I'm kind of offering it some of the more difficult stuff. I'm posing a question to everyone as well. No one asked Brian to sing. Everyone asked him to produce, but no one ever asked him. And he's such a fan of singing. You know, he's got such a clear, crisp voice, and mine is such a different sort of tone that it was kind of interesting to put the two together. I mean, obviously, I was delighted because I love Brian. I love him as a person. I love what the way he makes music. His sort of, you know, the way he conceptualises stuff is just really inspiring to me. Glimmer of hope.
Is that right? Was that the feeling?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to leave myself with a glimmer of hope
Yeah.
after I